Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald. Today we turn our gaze to a turbulent chapter in the late 14th century, April 4th, 1384, when John of Gaunt, the powerful Duke of Lancaster and son of King Edward III, led a fierce military incursion into the Scottish borders. It was a cold spring campaign wrapped in political ambition, bitter rivalry, and the unending tension between England and Scotland. And if you're curious about other fascinating events that happened on this day in history, be sure to check out my blog at bagtownclans.com/thisday. The link will be in the description. To understand the raid of 1384, we need to step back into the tangled web of the Hundred Years' War and the Anglo-Scottish Wars. England and France were locked in a protracted struggle for dominance, and Scotland, bound by the Auld Alliance, stood firmly by France. This alliance made Scotland an enduring thorn in England's side. Every time Edwardian forces sought to subdue France, there was always the threat of a northern front erupting in their rear. John of Gaunt, a figure of immense political and military power, saw the Scottish problem as one that needed stamping out decisively. With his elder brother, the Black Prince, already dead, and his father, Edward III, in decline, Gaunt saw himself not only as a warrior, but as a potential future king. Scotland's support for France undermined English efforts on the continent and threatened the stability of Gaunt's vision for England's future. So, on April 4th, 1384, John of Gaunt launched a punitive raid in Scotland. He assembled a sizable army and crossed the border with the aim of pressuring the Scots to abandon their alliance with France. But this was no ordinary campaign. Gaunt, though fierce, was not reckless. His goal wasn't occupation, it was devastation, scorched earth, disruption, demoralization. The path of the English army carved through the countryside like a blade. Farms were torched, livestock seized or slaughtered, and homes left in smouldering ruin. The Scottish people, as always, bore the brunt of the suffering, and yet even as the English advanced, they found no decisive battlefield engagement. The Scots, wise to the tactics of larger invading forces, melted into the hills and forests, striking where least expected, avoiding open conflict where possible. The raid was harsh and left scars upon the borderlands, but it was also inconclusive. Despite Gaunt's efforts, he could not draw out the Scottish forces for a climactic victory. Castles remained in Scottish hands. The terrain, the weather, and the tenacity of the local defenders all conspired against the English invaders. Moreover, internal tensions in England were growing. The cost of war, both in France and in Scotland, was draining the royal coffers, and the Duke of Lancaster's ambition made him both feared and resented in political circles. His Scottish campaign, while destructive, failed to achieve any lasting change. Scotland remained unbroken. The Auld Alliance endured. What Gaunt's raid did accomplish, however, was to harden Scottish resolve. Every English incursion, no matter how punishing, reminded Scots of the need for unity and resistance. They adapted, fought smarter, and deepened their sense of national identity. For every village that burned, the desire for self-rule grew stronger. This episode in 1384 reminds us that not all battles in history are fought for territory. Sometimes they are fought for influence, fear, and leverage in larger geopolitical games, and sometimes they end not with triumph but with quiet defiance, like the kind that echoed across the Scottish hills after Gaunt and his forces turned back southward, empty-handed. John of Gaunt would go on to wield considerable power in English politics, but Scotland would remain a thorn he never managed to remove. His son, Henry Bolingbroke, would become King Henry IV, but even under his reign, the Scottish question remained unresolved. The story of April 4th, 1384 is a story of resilience. It's a reminder of how even the mightiest invader can be thwarted by terrain, by spirit, and by the sheer refusal of a people to be conquered. Thank you for joining me today on This Day in Scottish History. I hope you've enjoyed this tale of raids, resistance, and the long memory of the borders. Don't forget to check out my blog for more historical stories at bagtownclans.com/thisday. Tune in tomorrow for another journey through Scotland's remarkable past. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste you back.